we're going to be speed running the chess.com forums to help people. So let's just start answering some questions. Okay, so the very first question here, they say, I have a question specifically related to over-the-board tournament play. Even in low-stakes tournament games, I find myself extremely nervous, visibly shaking, in the waiting time between my move and my opponent's. I don't feel this during my move, or while they move, just the time in between. I find it incredibly hard to calculate and concentrate during this time. Why might this be, and how can I calm myself? Okay, that's a really good question. I think a lot of people are nervous during the game at all stages when they're starting out, especially over the board. I think if you can try and focus on one specific task, even if it's a small one, it can sometimes take your mind off the nervousness. Maybe one task is just try and count the material for both sides. Kind of gives your mind something to do. Similarly, you might look at what pieces of you and your opponent are hanging at the moment, or just small things like that. So good luck trying to calm those nerves, and if it doesn't work, well, the more that you play, over time it will get easier. Okay, the next question here, it says they're memorizing theory. Please post super long lines in Botvinnik Semislav, Nidorf, Dragon, and Rui here. And so in the very first post, it implies that they're not too happy with their memorization, and the solution is to memorize more theory. I'm not 100% sure if this is a joke question or not, but I'll answer it seriously. The solution is not to try and memorize more theory. Especially if you struggle with memorizing openings, then don't go to your weakness. If you're going to play very sharp lines and very theoretical ones, like the ones that are listed above, then yes, you do just have to memorize those lines and play very concretely. But there's many other chess variations that require a lot less memorization. I would probably look into play an opening system, not necessarily the London system, it'd be something like the Kali system, or even formations like the Hedgehog formation or the Hippo formation. With openings like these, you can rely on those same patterns over and over, and less about memorizing specific moves. So if memory is an issue for you, or it's just not your strength, you don't have to try and memorize openings. You can also try and learn openings that just use the common ideas. For example, the King's Indian defense. If you use that with black, you play the same plans over and over, such as the f5 pawn break, but less important are the exact moves. Another opening you might look into is the Dutch defense, and more so about the structure and how you play based on what the opponent plays. Okay, this next one is asking for who is the chess GOAT, which of course is an acronym for greatest of all time, and so they're asking Carlsen or Nakamura. I know these two players kind of have a friendly rivalry going. I think most people are going to say Magnus Carlsen is arguably the GOAT. Hikaru Nakamura hasn't even won a world championship yet. They're very high rated online, they're a really strong chess player, but when Magnus Carlsen has won the world championship several times, I think you'd have to place him a little bit higher. Now, a better question is which player would be the greatest of all time if you don't go by rating. Maybe you go by time period. I think players like Kasparov could make a good case. I think another case could be Bobby Fischer. But can we actually focus on the post below that? I think this is the best answer. Both are humans, not goats. Kind of reminds me of this chess meme from chess.com, and yes, that was actually the official chess.com that posted that. Also, that laughing react emoji to that comment may or may not be from me. Alright, let's go to the next question. So this person says, I am bad at chess, my rating is 847. Not really a question per se. I think the implication they're trying to ask is, am I bad with 847? And no. Chess.com average rating is lower than that, and so you're better than half the players in the world. You can take a look at this chess video here, where I look at the global percentile, and show what the average rating actually is. Okay, the next question here says, is there any trick to playing Blitz and Bullet? It says, I am decent on Rapid, but haven't yet gotten the grasp of Blitz. And to this, I think there's really a difference between what's decent, meaning average, and what level is good to play Bullet and Blitz. As we recently just discussed, the average rating is actually fairly low in comparison to what most people think it is. And that's because if you go to a chess club, or somewhere where they take chess a little more seriously, the average player there is going to be a lot higher than the global average. In general, I wouldn't be recommending Bullet and Blitz to players that are rated under 1,000. Even though the global average is below this, Bullet and Blitz can do a lot of harm to your chess if you're not using it correctly. I am one of many people who believe that speed chess can actually benefit you, but only if you're doing the right things. What you don't want to do is condition yourself to move very quickly and make a habit out of neglecting calculation and then be rewarded for that because you're flagging people on time. Probably the trick to playing speed chess well is pattern recognition, and you usually get that by increasing your high level of chess understanding, that usually means playing longer time controls like rapid. So I'd probably stick with at least 10-minute time control. It may even benefit the person to try 15-10 or 30-minute chess instead. I may make a separate video where I go a little bit more in depth on what time control I think would benefit most people, but I think it's really individual. Try whatever time control feels comfortable, and then go with that or a little bit longer. You don't want to feel rushed every single game you play. You want to have a little bit of a barrier there. That way you have a little bit of extra time to think if you need it. This is going to be different for different people because some players naturally think really quickly and they can play pretty well under that time control. Other players, it takes a lot more time for them to come up with the right ideas. Without getting into specifics, I would avoid Blitz and Bullet because you really don't want to condition yourself to move too quickly, especially when you don't have those patterns in mind yet. Alright, the next one says, accuracy is higher against higher rated players. And that's their question here. And then their very first post says, my best game accuracy by far, according to chess.com, was against a 2000 plus ELO player, 99.2%. However, I had some strong games against low ELO players, and my accuracy falls down average 65%. Why does that happen? Accuracy shouldn't be related to our moves despite the opponent? Okay, so there's a little bit of misunderstanding here about how that accuracy is actually calculated. You can take a look at this chess video where I talk a little bit more about the truth behind this CAPS score. CAPS being the acronym that chess.com uses for this quote-unquote accuracy. The short answer is that yes, accuracy does depend very much on your opponent's level. But it's not because of their rating per se, it has to do with the strength of their moves. If you're playing someone who's roughly your level, they're probably not going to punish every single mistake that you make because they're similarly rated. If you're playing a grandmaster or some title player, they're probably going to punish even the very minuscule things that you do wrong. And so because these higher rated players are putting you under a lot more pressure, most of the time you're going to have lower accuracy against those players. But it's not that straightforward. Different game types, such as different openings, especially if the position is open or closed, those factors can actually make it easier or harder to find the best move. So for most people, the accuracy is going to be a lot lower when they're playing tougher players, and when the position is very tactical or sharp, because you have to play the very precise move. It's going to be easier to have higher accuracy when you play positional games that are really closed, because there's many good moves available, or when you're playing players around your level. If you have accuracy that's higher against higher rated players, it probably means that you're well familiar with those openings they're playing. And a higher rated player is going to play exact opening theory like what you've studied. But as soon as you get out of opening theory, such as a lower rated player who doesn't know theory, maybe you're not capitalizing. So if you're really getting higher accuracy against higher rated players, it might mean that you need to increase your overall chess understanding so you can punish these mistakes that lower rated players are making against you, and apparently you're not capitalizing on. And one more small note is they're saying your best game accuracy against a 2000 player, and it was really high, 99.2, but that is one game. I'm almost certain if you look at averages, you're probably going to have higher accuracy against lower rated players. And even if you're one of their very rare outliers that is not the case for, I can almost guarantee that that game with the 99.2% was probably against a player who, even though they were high rated, most likely blundered very early in the game, and then it was a lot easier for you to find good moves because they had a bad position from the opening. Okay, the next forum thread here says, time of day that I won or lost. Stockfish seems to keep track of all data. What I would like is to get my time of declared loss or win and a link to that game, hopefully as CSV or similar. I want to know by percentage whether I'm sharper in the morning, evening, or whether white or black, and a few other comparisons. I'm a database management consultant, so data rules in my book. Anyway, to generate custom reports, please. You don't have to go through all that trouble. That is actually already done for you. If you have chess.com Diamond membership, you can use the Insights feature, and they have many statistics, including different times a day. There's a lot of other statistics in there, as well as how often you win with what color, what opening, by game shape, and many other details. If you don't have the money for a chess.com Diamond membership, there is a free option that is pretty similar that someone came up with. It's not sponsored by chess.com, but I'll put the link in the video description if you want to try it. It's essentially a way to get your chess.com insights without having to purchase a premium membership. Alright, so next one here says how to promote a pawn when the opponent has 3 pawns and I have 3 pawns. Please help me for tips. Okay, so if you and your opponent actually have equal, such as 1 pawn versus 1 pawn, 3 pawns versus 3 pawns, or any other material imbalance, it's probably equal. So unless you outplay your opponent or you trick them somehow, it's probably going to end up in a draw. However, you can actually trick them successfully with this well-known pattern called the sneaker pawn. Most people have seen this pattern, but they don't know about the name sneaker pawn. You can take a look at this chess video here on many types of pawn things a lot of players should probably learn. And I mentioned this sneaker pawn towards the end of the video. In that example, it is exactly 3 pawns versus 3 pawns, and in that situation, you can force a pass pawn and win by force by promoting to a queen. Alright, the next one is labeled Only Cheaters, and it says, your game is now infested with cheaters below master ranks. Oh boy, here we go. I'm gonna have one of these questions already. It is impossible to rank up. I consistently play at about 1500, but I cannot move up the elo because I am bogged by the plague of cheaters on your platform. Okay, there's definitely a few people that always get paranoid here. Maybe you've seen a lot of Hans Niemann cases or other accusations like the Dr. Lupo thing going around. A lot of different cases where they may or may not have been cheating, and that kind of makes a lot of people paranoid. I really trust chess.com's ability to catch cheaters for the most part. It's not perfect, no site is, but they're getting much better at detecting cheaters. If you're really paranoid about it, you'll take a look at this other chess video I made a long time ago on how to protect yourself against cheaters. I will also comment, if you think your opponent is cheating, you're probably more likely to be looking at their best moves to try and prove that they're cheating, and that may actually hurt your own performance. You see, in chess, you generally want to be looking at your opponent's weakest moves. You're trying to see what little details they might have done wrong so you can actually exploit them. If you can't figure out what their weaknesses are because you're too busy looking at their best moves, you might actually play at a lower level, so indirectly being paranoid that your opponent is cheating may actually hurt your chess. I've moved much past 1500, and I deal with the same players that you do. It's the same chess.com site. But I will recommend one thing that's a little bit of a twist I don't hear too many people talking about. Chess.com does have something called good sport or poor sport rating, and I'm wondering if maybe some of these players that are accused of constant cheating may actually be in the poor sport rating pool. It's more likely they'll get paired with cheaters. One possibility, although I can't prove this, sometimes sandbag in their own games or type things in the chat, and that maybe that puts them in the poor sport category. So if you really want to escape this, maybe just play fairly. Try and finish all your games, or resign if you're going to leave. Don't just walk out of games. Try and be friendly in the chat, or better yet, don't even use the chat. And after a month or two, or however long it takes, maybe you'll find yourself facing less cheaters. But I can almost guarantee you this is probably a sense of paranoia, and not actually cheating being that bad compared to what they assume. The next one here says, why does the time added continue after every move at the end of 2 to 3 seconds? So if your time is actually going up consistently like that, it sounds to me like you've accidentally clicked an increment time control. If you play a chess.com 10-minute game, it'll be 10 plus 0. 0 is that increment number, which means that your time goes up 0 seconds after every move. In other words, you only have 10 minutes for the whole game. Other time controls, like what you play in Untitled Tuesday, is 3 plus 1. So that means you have 3 minutes for your base time of the game, but you also have a 1 second increment, which means it's going up by 1 second. Another popular time control on chess.com is 15-10. So that you have 15 minutes as your base time, and every time you move, your increment actually increases your clock by 10 seconds. You should be playing increment if you really want to finish on the position and you want less chance of being flagged and lose on time. But the drawback to increment is you really don't know how long the game could go, because even if you just have 1 or 2 seconds added to your clock every time, it's possible that if you and your opponent keep moving quickly, a game could go potentially much longer. If you don't have any increment at all, then at least the game can't go past a certain length. Like, for example, if you're playing a 10-minute game on chess.com, that's only 10 minutes for you and your opponent, you know that worst case scenario, the game will go on for 20 minutes. That's more helpful when you have to be somewhere later in the day. But if you've got a bunch of the day left and you're just wanting a better quality game, then you could try increment. If you're really sure it's not increment, then it might just be your clock settings, and so I would probably check your internet connection or your ping rate on chess.com and see if maybe you're actually playing regular chess, but maybe your clocks just are not synced to what the server clocks are actually showing. Then next one, we have all caps. Who is Martin Stahl? Kind of reminds me of this little bunny eating the little greens here. You see in all caps versus regular text. But okay, let's see what they're asking here. I've been seeing locked forum threads, including some of mine, that have a last post by some guy named Martin Stahl. I'm guessing Martin Stahl is that MS guy. At the very end, it asks, who is this guy? So you're asking about Martin Stahl? The Martin Stahl? You mean the chess.com mod that has been here since like 2009? The one with his chess.com blog, Theoretical Praxis? Who's constantly helping everyone in the chess.com forums and well-liked by a lot of chess players? Yeah, okay, I never heard of him. Okay, this one looks like it's a fair post. Someone who really just wants to improve. So this is a 16-year-old kid. My FIDE rating is 1995, which is so low at my age. They're 2700, 2600. I want to become a GM one day, so I don't have any coach. My whole life, I'm studying only chess books and online chess, and all my free time I train chess. But I don't think I'm improving, even I do, it's so slow. Can you suggest me? What books and how must I train? Thanks so much. Well, alright, this Witty Alien. That's a pretty high FIDE rating already. I really hope that you make it someday. Maybe you'll become a candidate master or something higher. You know what I might suggest to this person is maybe invent an opening, something you can name after you and kind of get a following. Maybe play something like a Carol Khan and then maybe have H6 or something in there. I don't know, something like that. Maybe call it like Extraterrestrial Gambit. Nah, that doesn't roll off the tongue. Maybe something alien. You'll figure it out. I think you might catch a lot of Grandmasters in traps doing that, and maybe you can outplay them. But if you actually want to be a Grandmaster, maybe long time in controls and a little bit more solid play, not just tactical tricks, might help you. Well, whatever the case, best of luck. This next question is it useful to do a lot of puzzles? Maybe 100,000. Okay, whoa, that is a lot of puzzles. I don't know if you realize just how many that is. So my short answer to this is no, I would not recommend doing that many puzzles. Do puzzles help you? Absolutely. That many puzzles? It makes you wonder if you could be studying other things in that time to kind of balance out. Now, to give context, I've been on chess.com for almost 8 years now. Here's my puzzles. This does not include the chess.com daily puzzle, and it doesn't count puzzles I've done on other sites. Like, I used to play puzzles on Chess a lot because they were free, and I didn't have the premium membership for chess.com back then. I also played a lot of puzzles on this chess site called chesstempo.com. I didn't have an account there. I would just do these puzzles fairly often. So of course my stats don't include for that, but you can see that I've only done 8,000 or so puzzles. So not even 10,000. And you're saying 100,000? So that's over 10 times more what I have? Now granted, I've never done puzzles that often. I think with that time, you'd probably benefit from a few other things. Yes, puzzles are important, but so are other things such as positional chess. There's a really good example in this chess video here, where it's a puzzle from Jeremy Silman's book, How to Reassess Your Chess 4th edition, and in that, Jeremy Silman has a really good example of a position where if you're really tactically minded, you're probably not too likely to find that solution here. But if a little bit of positional understanding, and you start thinking of the imbalances that Jeremy Silman talked about so much, you are much more likely to find the best continuation. This next forum thread says, why are 1200s so good? So I'm trying to reach 1500, and today I just played 4 rated games, won 2 and lost 2. This is super weird because I'm over 1200 USCF, and once was 1300. This translates to around 13 to 1400 chess.com rating. I've beaten and drew 1400s USCF over the board, but for some reason, the 1200s I play on chess.com are very good. But yes, I obviously made some stupid errors, but I still played most of the games 80 plus accuracy. Why is this? And I'm gonna need some help getting over 1200. I think the most likely explanation is USCF is most likely longer time control than you're playing on chess.com. And so people are most likely gonna find things in longer games. But with the shorter time control of online chess, maybe these players are just better under that time control. You may be conditioning yourself to play really long because of you playing over the board, and maybe these players are putting a little bit pressure on you because of the clock. That's not the only explanation, but that is a possible one. Another explanation is that you just haven't stabilized your rating. Either you're playing over the board much more than online, or you're playing online much more than over the board, and one or both of these ratings haven't yet plateaued to your true ability. It's also worth pointing out that 1200 is well above the global average, so yeah, 1200s are fairly good chess players. There's still much that they miss, but compared to the average person who doesn't know how to play chess, this player is really high rated. The next one is saying, is my IQ too low for chess? Very frustrated. I know people say that chess isn't really about IQ, and that anyone can improve with enough work, but I am really starting to doubt that's true, at least for me. I started playing chess about a year ago, so I've been doing everything people recommend, puzzles, opening study, endgames, analyzing my losses, but I still feel like I'm not getting anywhere, my rating barely moves, and every time I think I finally learned something, I just make the same mistakes again. If you've tried all of those things, then it may benefit you to get a little variety into things and mix things up. For example, if you're doing puzzles a lot, then maybe try reading a chess book. If you read chess books a lot, maybe try studying some endgames. If you try endgames a lot, try doing something else. And you can see where I'm going with this. You just experiment a lot, you branch out, and you see what works for you. If you're still stuck, it may benefit you to hire a chess coach. A human player that's much higher rated can give you a little bit of knowledge and understanding, and give you a little guidance and direction on what you should actually be doing. What I can tell you is that chess is definitely not related to IQ. There's a lot of strong players like Hikaru Nakamura. You can just look it up on YouTube. He took this online IQ test. Granted, probably not as official as the actual one. but his score was average. And we've seen his chess is nothing average. So he's really good at chess. What I've noticed is a lot of title players, they're really just normal people. They just have extraordinary chess ability, but it really doesn't correlate with their IQ. Now, I'll link a TV trope in the video description. Smart people play chess, and I think it is this fallacy that a lot of people are falling for, and why people think that smart people play chess. It is my belief that smart people are more likely to play chess because it's an intellectual game, and so that may skew the results, but I don't think that chess is actually just for smart people. So if you're feeling a plateau in chess, I wouldn't suspect your IQ, I would just take it as something you're doing is not working, or something else could be improved more. And really, that's something a chess coach would be really trained to do. Alright, this next one says, my opponent had slipped twice in a game, pretty sure they mean Mouseslip, none of which cost the game extremely badly, but they begged in the chat for a draw anyways. I was confused, so I accepted it, and I lost 1 point out of it. Was that the correct decision? That's nice of you that you accepted. Actually, when I was playing chess.com in my early years, I would have a very similar dilemma, where I was grinding rating, and it was really difficult for me. I'd be playing hours and hours at a time, and if I just gained 1 point, I'd be happy. Really late sometimes, just to gain that little extra rating. But then I would get into a situation like this, where somebody mouse slips, I'd kind of feel bad for them, and very often I would accept their draw offer, even though it was such hard-earned rating that I got. And then it was this chess.com forum thread that I distinctly remember years ago, but I do remember it was candidate master James Coleman made a post there, and basically the forum thread was this exact question. And James Coleman's answer was not what I had done before, but it really resonated with me, and I completely switched my view because of it. Essentially what he claimed was that they're not going to give you that same grace. If you hang your queen against them, you can be almost guaranteed they are not going to give you a draw. And so long term, if you play this over and over and over, you're actually losing rating because they are gaining by not giving you the draw, but when you mess up, then you give them a draw. And so you're indirectly hurting your own chess and helping them. If the game is unrated, this is completely different. If you're with a friend, then do whatever you want. It's just a friendly game. But if this is a rated game, treat it like it was a rated tournament. If you're offered a draw and you're really not worse, then don't take it. You really have to fight for all of that rating if you really want to improve and move up in your chess. So it's really nice of you to do that. I had the same good heart in helping people like that. But when it comes to the chessboard, you're here to gain chess rating. Sounds kind of savage, but if that's their goal, that's the part of the game, that's what everyone is going for. That's what's expected of them. Kind of reminds me of the Tiberian Sun song, No Mercy. I'll link that in the video description for all the Command & Conquer fans out there. But alright, let's see what the next question has got for us. Is from 1000 about 3 months ago to high 1300s fast/good improvement? Just a question, I want to see if I'm improving fast, or if at like average speed or kind of slow. Well, super good news for you, that is already above average, so that is pretty fast improvement. Congratulations, 1300 is really good, and you even said high 1300s, so you're really moving up. And from 3 months, that's extremely quick. Now here comes the reality thing. This doesn't make you a prodigy automatically. What most likely happened is when you were at 1000 3 months ago, that probably wasn't plateaued at your true ability. There was probably some potential there somewhere that got unlocked with something. You were working hard at your chess, and you gained rating very quickly. The problem is, inevitably, you will plateau at some higher rating. Maybe high 1300s, maybe some other rating, and once you plateau, then it's going to be much harder to move up because that is roughly where your ability is at. So what probably happened was your rating really just caught up to your ability. Now 1300s is again much higher than the global average, as I mentioned in that chess video before, but I'd still be pretty satisfied with your results. Now the next question here is, why is it that I can beat 700 ELO people, but my Blitz rating is still 500? Well, that's a gap of 200 rating points, which is actually not that far apart. It is very likely that you will lose to players who are 100 or 200 points lower rated than you. It is statistically pretty likely to happen. It's a real percentage. It's not the majority of the time, but you are expected to lose against them. Now similarly, you are also expected to win occasionally against people that are 100 or 200 points higher rated than you. Your rating is an average, so it's really about being consistent at that level. But there definitely will be outlier games with higher or lower ratings than you where you win or lose. If you're really curious, I'll put in the video description a link to an ELO calculator where you can type in your rating and your opponent's, and it'll give you the mathematical estimate of how often you should win based on those ratings. Should I play Blitz? I just started out playing chess, and I was wondering if some more experienced players could help me out. Whenever I analyze my games, I always find quite a few tactics that I missed. Most of my losses even seem to come from overlooking some of my opponent's moves. Currently, I do puzzles on League Chess for about half an hour each day, and I've gotten my puzzles rating over 2,000. But this has very little impact on the problem. I was trying to figure out if I were to start playing Blitz in addition to Rapid, would that help spot tactical ideas quicker? Do you think that it would work, or is there something else that I should do to mitigate this issue? In addition, is there any other tips you have to get past the 1100 to 1200 level on chess.com? Thank you for your help. These longer posts can sometimes feel like a mouthful, but really this is the kind of posts that chess.com forums are really good with. When I was trying to improve, I would post longer things exactly like this. And these are the people that are definitely going to improve. I can almost guarantee if we check in on this person in a while, no pressure here to them, their rating is probably going to be higher. When the people have in-depth questions like this, and not just your superficial ones, they're much more likely to improve than those people who have just very superficial questions. Something like this is trying to get to the root of the problem and really decide how to move further. That tells me they're probably going to improve at chess because they're putting in that dedicated effort to really improve their rating. So alright, I've given you a pat on the back already. Let's answer that question. I think there's a few different things going on here. First of all, League Chess puzzle rating of 2,000 is pretty high considering that your chess.com is 11 to 1200 game rating. So that probably means you're pretty good at tactical puzzles for that level. And that makes sense because you just told us that you're putting about half hour every day into doing puzzles. So that dedication is clearly paying off. So yes, puzzles are important, but you can be improving your chess by doing other things. What I'm guessing is the reason that you're not improving faster has nothing to do with puzzles. You're probably already above average for that category. It's probably a lack of understanding in some other areas. What areas? I'm not sure. We would have to look at your games. Maybe it's a lack of endgame understanding, maybe it's some positional chess that you haven't quite considered yet, or a host of many other possibilities that it could be. Now for the question, should you play Blitz? Yeah, this could go two ways. In general, I would probably say no, because I don't think that it is the Blitz that is helping you. In other words, playing faster and trying to rush to get the answer is not going to help you get the answer any sooner. It's just going to make you feel rushed, you won't know exactly what to look for, and you'll probably play worse chess because of it. Now, earlier I said it wasn't so easy, because there is something else to this question here. It sounds like you're only playing Rapid, and with 10-minute time control being the most popular time control on chess.com, I can make the assumption you're probably playing 10-minute games only. I wouldn't recommend playing only one time control. I would recommend most people have one time control that is like their main time control, and every now and then they play at least one other time control. Me personally, I care more about my 10-minute rapid rating on chess.com, and so that's what I mostly play. That is my default, like most chess players here. And every now and then I'll play Blitz, but I don't really care about that rating as much. And I really don't care too much at all about my bullet rating. I know some people instead that they really care a lot about their Blitz rating, and they almost never play Rapid and don't really care much for it. But in either case, you should be mixing up the time control to some extent. And the reason for this is because it really helps you think differently, because we very often talk about how Blitz and Bullet can condition your mind to moving really quickly. But what we don't talk about is how playing really long time controls can similarly condition your mind to playing really slowly. That will hurt you less often, but if you're playing the same time control over and over for years, you're probably going to condition your mind to moving for that pace. And the danger with that is if you play longer time control or shorter, your mind may or may not be able to adjust as easily. But if you play at least 2 time controls every now and then, you're preventing your mind from being conditioned to only that time control. So if you're only playing something like 10-minute rapid, I would recommend playing another time control like Blitz, even if it's just casually for fun. What I would not do is play it predominantly similar to how you're playing Rapid, and then try and grind rating for that, because you're just going to rush yourself and probably miss the things that are really going to help you improve. If you really want to spot tactical ideas quicker in Rapid chess, then it really is pattern recognition, which puzzles do help with, but there's also another element to it, and that element is predicting your opponent's moves. It's much easier to find the right ideas if you're already thinking about it 1 or 2 moves prior. So maybe do some positional practice where you start studying pawn structure, you start looking at different openings, and start maybe even looking at Jeremy Silman's imbalances, and things like this will really help you branch out so in most positions you have a really clear idea of what to do because of things like the pawn structure or the imbalances that Jeremy Silman talks about. Alright, this next one says, if your OC, meaning original character, if your original character was a chess bot, what would their strategy be? Description and lines. Ooh, this is a really fun one. So let's see, so if I was a chess bot, kind of similar like Mittens, what would it be like? And I'm trying to wonder what my profile picture would be. Would it be like a KE Seto Kaiba bot? Would it be like a Kevin bot? I'm not really sure. How would it look? I'm curious. Maybe it'd be something like one of these two. What would their strategy be? Well, it'd probably be the same as my playstyle, which is a bit more on the positional side, a bit more on the calm side. You can learn about it from these 2 personality quizzes that I took over the years. One of them much longer ago, and then one of them fairly recent. So that'll probably give a good sense of my playstyle. I wonder what kind of lines it would be. I don't give up too easily, so when I'm losing, down by a lot of material, just like this chess meme here, I would probably say, this is fine, or something like that. If you like chess memes, you can also take a look at this video I made on a bunch of chess memes. Want a good laugh? That's also pretty good. But I think that was pretty fun. So we've gone through all of the chess.com forum questions that I had gathered. Hopefully we've speed run helping a lot of players. So thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next chess video.